In New Orleans, those floodgates to defend the city in the wake of Hurricane Katrina seem to be working.
The city is being pummeled by Hurricane Isaac, a less powerful storm than the one that hit the city 7 years ago to the day. For the latest, we're joined now by our North America correspondent, Lisa Miller. Lisa, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about the latest situation with Hurricane Isaac?
Paul, they watch this storm creep across the water towards it, and then it's basically parked itself above New Orleans and the surrounding areas. It's moving so slowly, and that is half the problem. So at the moment, it is just dumping torrential amounts of rain, and the winds are incredibly fierce, gusts of up to about 160 kilometres an hour. So what I can tell you at this point in time, mid-afternoon here in America, is that areas that had mandatory evacuations southeast of New Orleans have been flooded. They were protected by local levees, not the more extensive levees that Karina was just indicating around New Orleans. So people were mostly taken out of that area, but there were still some rescues that were going on. It's just a pretty horrendous storm, made all the worse, Paul, by the fact that it's come on the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina.
Now, what is the significance of that, other than it being an utterly remarkable coincidence to happen at the same time? But I guess hurricanes happen at this time of year. What's the significance with how the area has been prepared?
Well, this is actually the first hurricane of the season to make landfall, so, you know, there's always a lot of anticipation before hurricane season, given the history of them here in the US. Lots of people being prepared, but what's interesting is that this is the first big one to make landfall near New Orleans and to test those new levees that were built. $10 billion spent on those levees around New Orleans in the years since 2005. So this is the first big storm to make landfall there to really give them a testing. The local authorities are saying that they are working at the moment. They are holding back the waters. We're hearing from various people who went through Katrina, who saw their own homes flooded, and at the moment they're saying the most terrifying thing is the wind, that it's just so fierce, it's really rocking their houses, but thankfully they're not seeing any of the water starting to creep into their streets, which is what happened last time. It was the first sign of the horrors that lay ahead for them. So far so good, although, Paul, ironically, they may even have to breach these new levees to let out some of the water pressure from this southern area south of New Orleans, this town of Braithwaite. It's only a small town, but it's the one that's been really hit hard.
Oh, you mentioned the local authorities there and these critical decisions that they have to make to manage the situation. How are the different agencies working together? There seem to be more control from the authorities?
Absolutely, and people say that it's a lot more organised and that so much has changed over the years. There's still a little bit of political sniping going on. Bobby Jindal, the Louisiana governor, was due at the Republican convention this week, and he indicated he wouldn't go. He's had a bit of a jab at the Obama administration, saying that he's not getting the kind of federal backup that he requires right now. So I think you have to take all of that with a bit of a grain of salt. The message that everyone is sending through is that this is not, you're not going to see the kind of damage, you're not going to see the loss of life, fingers crossed, that we saw in Katrina. I mean, that was more than 1,800 people died in that storm. As the years go by, it does tend to fade, but I mean, you think about those extraordinary figures and the devastation that occurred then. It just, psychologically, it must be so tough for them down there when they were going to commemorate it, because they still have the yearly commemorations, Paul. They ring the bells of the cathedral, and of course a lot is done to mark the deaths of those people. So psychologically it must be excruciating to be living through it at the moment.